Ibn Masud, however you say it, Masud,
Masoud, yes.
which caused conflict. So wouldn't that indicate that there wasn't a perfect preservation and that there was actually a lot of human intervention in terms of the compilation of the Quran?
Well, first of all, you have most of the Sahaba affirmed the Quran with the production of Uthman. They agreed on what he did, apart from Ibn Mas'ud, who later came along and he accepted it.
So now, according to your prophet in the hadith, did he say
The prophet
one of the people
he went to four, and one of them was on the committee with Ibn.
So was one of the four Ibn Masud?
One of the four on the committee wasn't Ibn Mas'ud, but it was Ubay ibn Ka'b, who the prophet also vouched for.
Right. So if
the prophet vouched for four, right? Four people.
And one of them was Ibn Masud.
One of them was Ibn Mas'ud, and one of them was Ubay ibn Ka'b. Ubay ibn Ka'b was on the committee of the Quran with Uthman. So already we have someone from the committee. We have Zayd ibn Thabit, who witnessed what we call like the last revelation, as in he saw the Quran at its final form of everything.
That's not true, because when Uthman compiled the Quran, he got it from people, from sticks and stones, and people who had written it in different places. So he didn't go to Zayd and say, recite what you had learned, because even before that,
Zayd is a witness, yeah.
But even before that, Hafsa had her own copy had her own codex.
Yeah, and Uthman took that one.
But then you're saying, so why did he burn it and recreate it if that was the final version? Or
I don't know if he burned it.
Yeah, it was burnt, and it was recompiled.
He took it and then he used it and then he gave it back because he swore an oath to give it back.
Okay. Even before I ask, go into that, I have another question.
Yeah.
To go back, because if Ibn Zayd was the one who who saw the Quran in its full final form, then why isn't the verse of stoning in the Quran?
Because it was abrogated.
No, because Uthman said that there were not two witnesses for it. Because remember, every verse had to have two witnesses for it to be in the compilation.
Yeah, of course, right.
So then if you're saying Zayd had the full revelation, then that contradicts the fact that they needed two witnesses, because they would have needed two witnesses with Ibn Zayd, who witnessed the final revelation, because the criteria for the verses to be in, that's why they abrogated the text but not the ruling. And the comment was that he didn't want to be accused of something because he didn't want to be accused of putting something in the Quran because he didn't have a second witness.
Well, first of all, you have Omar, first of all, that is before Uthman, and he vouched for the abrogation of the verse of the stone. And he said, I would put the verse back if it wasn't for people to say that Omar put something back in the book of Allah that you had no authority to put.
Right.
So before the time of Uthman, the verse was abrogated. The verse, it was abrogated like in recitation, but it wasn't abrogated. The ruling wasn't abrogated. Whereas even when it comes to the time of Uthman later, it stays the same thing.
Does
Uthman say that the reason this word is not found is because we didn't find two witnesses?
Yes, let me see if I have the
because before
evidence.
Uthman, it was acknowledged before the time of Uthman.
Well, this is what I'm saying. So it seems to contradict the fact that you said Zayd was given the final reading, and if Zayd was given the final reading, Zayd wasn't one of the four that your prophet said learn the Quran from.
Yeah, but he was young and he was a Hafiz.
But this is what I'm saying. How can he be the one who was... How can he be the one that learned the final Quran when your prophet gave instruction to learn the Quran from four other people?
We got one of them on the committee, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I'm saying you said Zayd was there when he saw the final revelation. Yeah. So were the others there with the final revelation too?
I don't know about that. I genuinely don't know.
So why would your prophet then say learn the Quran from those four?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe first of all at that specific time, and secondly,
you see, this is why Yasser Kadir said there's holes in the standard narrative, because even you know these are simple questions, but it would seem odd that if Jibril revised the Quran with Muhammad several times after what was it? Was it Ramadan?
Yeah.
yeah, several times, and left the Ummah with a fully compiled version, then it seems that odd that he would say learn the Quran from these four people. Then Uthman went to Ibn Zayd, and then Ibn Masud even had a disagreement about him, saying, when I learnt the Quran, you were still in a little boy, essentially.
Yeah.
So the narrative doesn't seem to add up. And especially if you add in the fact that when they did recompile the Quran, because if Hafsa had a finalized Quran, they wouldn't have brought people who had their sticks and stones, the Quran written on parchment leaves and whatnot, and compiled it. And also, which I'm trying to find, stating that you needed two witnesses for the verses to be accounted for.
That's for responsibility, because you can't, even though they could have personally just written down what they know, but that wouldn't be justice, because.
So who knew? Because as well, one of the reasons why they writ down the Quran was, if it was in its final form, it was because of the battle of Yamama against Muslima.
Yeah.
Muslima, where lots of the Quran died. So either many had memorized it, or you had one copy. If you had it written down, then it wouldn't have got lost in the battle.
No, the copy. I'm not aware of any copy that was lost in the battle.
No, I'm saying.
Aware of, a lot of people who have memorized this.
But I thought it was Umar had a written codex, which was the final one that was revealed.
Abu Bakr had a written codex.
Yeah, sorry, Abu Bakr.
Yeah, and it was with Fatima, and Uthman used it for his.
So then, why did he say, "I'm worried that we will lose the Quran in the battle because many of the Quran or the reciters died, and that we need to compile it"? If Abu Bakr already had one.
Oh, okay. Well, recitation first of all, because without critical marks.
Yeah, but Abu Bakr already had a.
Yeah, but you don't have critical marks in that.
So you're saying Uthman recompiled just to add the diacritical marks, because he sent it out without the diacritical marks?
I think he just tried to do what is best in his eyes.
But that's what I'm saying. Does it make sense that I'm Abu Bakr, I have a copy.
Yeah.
There's a battle over there with the Hafiz or whatever, who apparently memorized different parts of the Quran.
Yeah.
And they died, and then Uthman has said, let's compile the Quran because you're afraid that the Quran will be lost.
Yeah.
But you already have a copy here.
Yeah, but look, the man did what is best in his eyes. He took
does that make sense?
He took the codex that Abu Bakr had already done,
right,
and he used it to compile his codex as well. And he used the same committee.
But so I'm saying, why would you?
If the codex is Fatima's, was it Hafs? It was Hafsa's codex. He's not going to take and say, "Oh, sorry," because it was her own. So he took it to use it, but then he gave it back. So I don't see the.
Yeah, but I'm saying, why would you say let's compile the Quran if it's already compiled?
Oh, okay, I understand what you mean now. Yeah, because it was. Okay, I understand what you mean now. I think the answer to that is because the spreading of Islam that was happening very quickly. He needed a copy in each place.
So you just copy Abu Bakr's one multiple times, because he said specifically, I will fear that the Quran will be lost, so let's write it down. But I'm saying there was already compiled one, because that's why I asked you, who was there when Muhammad gave the full final revelation of the Quran in all the 7 different modes?
Yeah.
If it was Ibn Zayd, then if people are dying, you wouldn't have had to worry, because you had Ibn Zayd, you also had the Abu Bakr's version, and also the 4 who said learn the Quran.
Abu Zayd is not immortal.
Yeah, but then you had it written down. So why would you compile something that was already compiled?
I don't know. I think he just did what's best in his eyes, man. I don't know what to tell you, bro.
Well, does that make sense? Is what I'm asking you.
It makes sense to him,
but not to you.
It makes sense to me.
Okay, explain what
he used. All I can say is that he used Abu Bakr's codex. He used it, and that's all I can say. Honestly, I don't know what to tell you, bro.
Yeah, but I'm saying, why would you say let's compile the Quran if it was already compiled?
I think he meant in those specific areas. Like, he compiled it to erase the confusion in those specific areas.
And we also have go on.
No, I understand your questions, honestly, but that's all I
yeah. So that's what I'm saying. The Islamic narrative, or that's all I'm highlighting, is that it's very contradictory, and it doesn't make sense, because if Muhammad gave, for example, the final sermon, there was supposed to be loads and loads of people there.
Yeah.
So if Muhammad has finalized Islam, because in the Quran it says, "This day I've made your religion perfect for you,"
Yeah.
and he's gone through it after Ramadan with Jibril and make sure there are no mistakes, there had to be some people that he gave the recitation to that held it. So if they had the final version, then it would have had to have included the four, because you wouldn't say learn the Quran from people that didn't have the final version.
Oh yeah. Hold on. I'm not sure if.
So does that make sense?
Because me personally, like, I'm aware of the reasons why Uthman used Zayd ibn Ka'b. I understand the reasons why he used him. I understand why he got one of the four that the Prophet vouched for on the committee. So I understand both of those choices.
Yeah, but if Muhammad had left the perfected Quran, then why is he going against Muhammad's last revelation to compile it? If Muhammad did that already, because this is what he said, and this is Abu Dawood. It says, we have been informed that much of the Quran had been revealed, but those who knew it were killed at Yamama. They had preserved it, and it was never known or written after them.
Can you read that again, sorry? I lost in the middle.
Okay, so this is in Bukhari. I'll start with Bukhari.
Yeah.
It says, Umar came to me and said, casualties were heavy among the Qurra of the Quran on the day of the Battle of Yamama, and I am afraid that more heavy casualties may take place among the Qurra on the battlefields, whether by large part of the Quran may be lost. Therefore, I suggest you, Abu Bakr, order that the Quran be collected. So then,
oh shit! I wasn't aware of these many cameras, man. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You look up and
I wasn't aware, man.
So I'll give you another report. Say you look down, you look up, and they come out of nowhere. So this is Ahmed Hanbal, and he says, so another quote says, we have been informed that much of the Quran had been revealed, but those who knew it were killed at Yamama. They had preserved it, and it was never known or written after them. And this is works that can be found in, I think, Al-Sayuti. So now, does that statement go with the claim that Muhammad finalized the Quran and it had left it with a choice of his closest companions?
Which one is that?
So there's the Abu Bakr one, that's in Bukhari.
Yeah.
And this one is in.
Casualties were on the Quran of the Quran. On the day of Battle of Yamama, and I am afraid that more happy casualties may take place among the Quran and not be integrated in a large part of the Quran with the rest. Therefore, I suggest to order that the Quran be collected. Okay, so that's the first collection.
Right.
It's the first
But
collection.
then, if Muhammad had already given a final revelation to someone,
Yeah.
why would you then fear that it needs to be compiled? Because there should have been, for example,
because he can die.
He can. Okay. So now, if I find, for example, where it talks about the two witnesses, then that would go against, because they'll say, I was there at the final revelation. Muhammad revealed it to me. And if the Quran is so eloquent, you wouldn't be able to fabricate a verse.
Yeah.
You wouldn't need two witnesses, because the proof would be the eloquence of the Quran in itself. Because if you can't copy the Quran, why would you need two witnesses to verify that it was from the Prophet?
Well, first of all, abrogation. Secondly,
abrogation.
Yeah, so like the verse of stoning, as a basic example, like someone could bring the verse of stoning. If you don't have two witnesses, then it might have been like just an abrogated verse that we're not aware that it was abrogated. But
here's the problem, and here's even a problem with the Islamic narrative of the verse of abrogation, because it's supposed to it does apply to rulings, but according to the Quran it says it's supposed to be replaced with something better. So when a verse is abrogated, it's replaced with something else.
Was something like it or better.
So what was the something like it that was revealed in its place?
Well, I'm not aware specifically in place of that specific one.
But that's what I'm saying. So what you've been fed is a stories which you've not questioned, but when it's put to you and you think about it, it doesn't make sense, because even Allah's own very testament was that we replace it with something similar or something better.
Yeah.
So why would you abrogate the text but not the ruling? But then if it's abrogated, it should be it doesn't make sense. Why you would abrogate the text? What I think happened is that people knew that there was a punishment for stoning, and because they required 2 witnesses and they could only get 1 witness, they knew it was a ruling that had been carried out, so they kept it. But because of the requirement for 2 witnesses, they didn't put it in the text, but they kept the rulings.
The reason I wouldn't be on board with that is just because of reports we have in the time of Umar that he gave his own testimony of it. Are you aware of that one?
Yeah, he gave
it about the verse of application.
What does he say?
He says, Allah revealed the verse of stoning, and if it wasn't for people, if I didn't fear that people would say Umar added something to the book of Allah that he had no authority to, I would add it in the Quran.
Right. So he had authority that he didn't have the authority because it's based on the 2 witnesses.
No, that was Uthman, in Uthman's time.
Yeah, so say that verse, say what you said again.
Umar said, if I did not, the verses of stoning were revealed in the time of the Prophet, and we knew them and memorized them.
Right.
And if I wasn't scared that people would say that Umar added something to the book of Allah that he had no authority to, I would add it again.
So where does it say it was abrogated?
He acknowledges the abrogation.
That's not
literally acknowledges the abrogation.
No,
you know
that proves my point.
The rule of 2 witnesses, was that given by the Prophet, or it was a personal effort from Uthman? Which one was it?
that wasn't given by Muhammad.
Yeah, it was a personal effort by Uthman.
Exactly.
So you can't apply the personal effort of Uthman to Umar and say he did not do it because he didn't have to.
So this is the thing. So why would Uthman make a criteria that Muhammad didn't make? Because this is what I was saying. Remember, how does that go? Because what you should show me is that Muhammad's final revelation of the perfected Quran, he explained to someone that this is now being abrogated, but the ruling is being stayed, is being kept, because he would have been the one who revealed the final version without that verse in it.
Yeah.
So how would it then come later on that Uthman is taking it upon himself, and it's not a criteria that was established by Muhammad?
Yeah, because first of all, the process of witnesses is something that the Prophet himself heavily relied on. Because
but he gave a final revelation, and he said learn the Quran from the 4.
Yeah.
So they should have had already the full revelation that they could have taught to people. But then it was Uthman who made the criteria, not one of the 4.
No.
Because they would have said, this is not in our recitation because the Prophet never taught it to us, because it's abrogated apart from the ruling.
Wait, say that again?
So, if Muhammad had taught them that the verse was not to be in the Quran anymore, but the ruling should be kept, it should have been one of those 4 who raised that point to tell everyone, hey guys.
Well, they proved it, didn't they?
Did they?
Zayd ibn Thabit.
So exactly, Zayd
and Ubay.
And how many chapters in the Quran did Ubay have? 112. No, was it 116?
116. Then why did he do one with 112?
No, it was 100. Yeah, 112 then. Sorry. So
what we have now is 112.
114.
Oh yeah. Right.
Yeah. So he had 112.
He had 112.
So
he wasn't aware of 2. That actually proves the point.
But this goes again. If the Prophet said learn the Quran from Ubay ibn Ka'b as one of the people, and he witnessed the final revelation of the Quran, why would he?
Did he?
Well, I'm asking who was the person who witnessed the final revelation? Because you said Muhammad went through it with Jibril.
Yeah.
So clearly it would have been taught to someone.
Yeah, of course.
So
Zayd was one. Zayd 100% was one of the.
No, because that's why he had a dispute with Ibn
No,
Masud.
No, I know for a fact that Zayd had witnessed that, the final revelation. But let me just get the names of everyone who
Okay.
witnessed that.
Because as well,
So tell me, did you?
Oh, was that just Zayd? Okay, so here's this should give us an answer.
okay.
Oh, come on. Look how tiny it is. Now I have to zoom, but when I zoom, it doesn't scroll.
Or
You
maybe
see it?
turn your phone sideways.
Oh, okay, that's good. So the final revelation is when Jibril showed the Quran to the Prophet on his
Okay.
final form. Okay.
Right.
It was narrated from the authority of Aisha that the Prophet said that Gabriel would show him the final version of the Quran every
Right.
year,
Uh-huh.
1 or twice a year,
Mm-hmm.
and that he gave him now twice.
Mm-hmm. So the final
myself-
recension.
And I see myself, and I see myself dying soon. So
So just
fear
before
Allah.
he died,
Okay.
yeah.
So this is one. Another report in Bukhari says,
So who did he teach that final recension to?
see, I think that's what we're coming to. So that's the first one. I think this one just explains the concept of it.
Okay.
This report says,
Now, actually go on and say
okay,
it.
actually, this report just is like is a reiteration of the first one.
Okay.
And then it says, and the one who witnessed this one from the Sahaba is Ibn Mas'ud and Zayd ibn Thabit.
So okay, so Ibn Masud and Zayd ibn Thabit. So
Yeah.
now we've got evidence here that Ibn Masud is one. So now if Ibn Masud had to give up his codex, why would that be possible if he was one of the people that witnessed the final recension?
There is no evidence.
All right, so you have Ibn Mas'ud and Zayd ibn Thabit, who were the two at that one, at the last.
I thought that was a response, but in regards, as you know,
So all I'm highlighting is there's contradictory information in the Islamic sources. Because if they both witnessed it, they wouldn't have both disagreed. And Uthman would have had no right to then take Ibn Masud's codex, because if man was doing something Muhammad had not done himself.
That was a good question, sure.
And also, let me just add one other thing whilst you're pondering. And this is in Sahih Muslim.
Yeah.
And it says Aisha reported that it had been revealed in the Holy Quran that 10 clear sucklings make the marriage unlawful. Then it was abrogated. You see, abrogation, whereas the other ones, the rulings, there was no mention of abrogation. But it
It's
says,
different types of abrogation.
then it says, then it was abrogated and substituted by 5 sucklings, and Allah's apostle died, and it was before that time found in the Holy Quran and recited by the Muslims. Now, we don't find that verse in the Quran anymore.
Yeah.
So the question would be, what happened to it?
It was abrogated.
No, it wasn't. It said the verse of 10 was abrogated with 5. So then the 5 was in the Quran at the time he died.
What does it say in the time he dies?
Yeah, so look, the 10 clear sucklings make the marriage lawful. Then it was abrogated by 5, and Allah's apostle died, and it was before that time found in the Holy Quran and recited by the Muslims. So I'm just saying, you've just read that Muhammad gave a final recension of the Quran. So this verse should have been in that final recension, but we don't find it anymore.
One sec.
of that.
Turn off your music.
And also,
And you can't accuse me of twisting the meaning, because it's very clear of what's being said.
of citizens, I came direct after.
All right, let me just find one thing really quickly.
No problem.
Because this is what they said, right? And what Aisha said, that the Prophet died and these are still being recited, it means that the abrogation with 5 sucklings was very late. That even when the Prophet died, some people were still reciting them, not aware that it has been abrogated.
So now, here's the problem again. We go back to, we see the 10 was replaced by something better.
Yeah.
5 sucklings. What was the 5 replaced by? Something similar or something better. And 2, if that is to be true, we would need a mutawatir report from the companions to say that there wasn't abrogations. Because what it seems is a lot of the scholars like to invent their own explanation to make it flow, but there's no evidence that it's based upon. Because where are the reports?
Do you know where the tawatur starts from?
Where?
Like on the lowest. So you have us here and you have the Sahaba here.
Right.
Where does the tawatur have to come from? What's the lowest, what's called, like floor or... So the tawatur is Sahabi, one from the person from the Sahaba.
Right.
That's counted as authentic purely. And then it goes, you have to have tawatur from the tabaqah that's afterwards.
Right.
So if you have one Sahabi, or you have
Do you have one Sahabi that affirms that?
Zayd ibn Thabit, the committee.
No, where he said that the 5 sucklings was abrogated.
Oh, we don't have to have the report because he compiled his codex, so we don't have to. He doesn't have to say, "Oh, guys, this has been abrogated." Just look at his copy and we don't find it, so we know that's his opinion.
Well,
That's what he's. That's
or
what he
it
knows.
went missing, because that's why, as we see with the Battle of Yamama and people were dying, that verses were going missing. And we also see within Ibn Masud's codex there were different verses and different that we don't have in the Quran today. So this is why the question is, if we go by the report that you said, and it said Ibn Masud as one of the people, we wouldn't have that conflict between them, because they both would have been aware that they both had the final 2, even though your prophet said,
Was there a conflict among the verses of the Suckling?
not regarding the suckling, but
Yeah,
in terms of, that's 2 different things. So with the verse of the suckling, there's no evidence. You're just saying, well, because it was Ibn Zayd was there, therefore it was abrogated.
And
I'm
Zayd
asking,
wrong.
what is the evidence? Because we said, the verse is normally replaced by something better or similar, as stated by Allah. That's what the Quran says. So because that's why it says there was 10 sucklings and it was replaced by something similar, which was 5 sucklings. So what was the similar verse that was revealed? And this is why, when you look at the narrative, and this is why people say there's holes in the Islamic narrative, because it doesn't make sense. You're saying learn from the 2, your prophet said learn from the 4, then from the 2 they were disputing from each other. Ibn Masud didn't want to give his codex, and even 100 years after his death, his students were still using his codex. But Ibn Masud, as you're aware, he said for the sake of the unity of the Ummah, he would go with the Uthman's version. But why would Uthman do what your prophet hadn't done? Because as you are saying, he went through every year with Jibril. Apparently no one saw, but he went through it twice in the final year. So let's say if we assume that the final 2 people were Ibn Masud and Zayd, then why would Ibn Zayd have a clash with Uthman about it? He should have said, hey, the prophet said learn the Quran from me. I was there with the final recension.
Yeah. Fair enough. You know what? It's a good one. I'll go see more onto that.
No
Then
problem.
we'll come back at it,
Next
right?
time you're here.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, man.
Thanks. So just to do a quick wrap up, we clearly see that
Sir, multi-faith.
this nice young gentleman was clearly stumped about the contradictory evidence within the Quran's compilation. But at first, this conversation started off because he said he is a Salaf and he goes by the interpretation of the Salaf. And I showed him, well, Muhammad prayed for Ibn Abbas to be the ink of the Ummah. And we even see the statement where Jibril said that Ibn Abbas will become the most knowledgeable within the community. But then yet when we see Ibn Abbas, he said that the interpretation of Nun by the pen was that the earth was on a whale's back. But because people now have science, they reject this. But before, they wouldn't have had a problem with it. No one would have said, hey, you're crazy. How can the world be on a whale's back? But now we have, scientific knowledge. We know that's not true, and it debunks the Quran. Then we moved into the compilation of the Quran, and we see the clearly contradictory narrations of where it says Muhammad went through the Quran twice in 1 year for the final recension, but then it was compiled because the Quran were being killed but then Muhammad said learn the Quran from the four. So
Battery run out there.
why did they have a dispute between Zayd and Ibn Masud if Muhammad said if these were the people that saw the two final fully compiled clear revelations from Muhammad? So the more we go into the sources, the more we see there's contradictory and conflicting evidence. So on that note, Paperboy out.